afternoon and welcome to the advisory committee meeting of July 19th, 2022. This meeting is being recorded. Thank you all for coming. We'll open up with a roll call. Stevie?
Good afternoon, all. Mick Bianchi. Lisa Werder Brown.
Present.
Lloyd Cunningham.
Here.
Dan DeMarco. Patricia DeMarco.
Present.
Tina Doucet. Arian Ford Graver. Nick Resock.
Here.
Mark Heckman.
Here.
Rebecca Kiernan. Ken Lasota.
Here.
Ruthie Ann Omer.
Here.
Will Pickering.
Here.
Mary Ellen Ramage.
Here.
Tim Rogers.
Here.
Kathy Sapp. Danielle Ventresca. We have 10.
Quorum with some to spare.
Stevie, I don't know if I count as being part of that, but I'm here and I didn't hear my name and wondered, question for the group that I was asked is, do we send out like a RSVP?
Yeah.
So people can RSVP, so we know if people aren't coming. Like I saw Rebecca was on vacation.
Right.
So Jeannie is saying, yes, we do send out an RSVP.
We actually send out the announcement of the meeting, the agenda, and then Stevie has been calling people also.
There are some that have said they were going to attend and they haven't come into the meeting yet.
And Darla, thanks for letting us know. We always know when you're present, so good to have you aboard. We'll start the meeting with the possible approval of the minutes of June 2022. Your pleasure.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Question on the motion. Under question, let the record show that the minutes were altered to include the fact that our letter was at the last meeting. Any other changes to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor, give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so ordered. Open house update, Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to remind everybody that we are going to have our open house this year, Saturday, September 10th.
It's a pretty brave thing to do with all the construction going on.
Hey, well, that's a showcase, man. So I'm going to leave some flyers on the table if you guys need some or take it wherever. Spread the word, please do. I hope to see everybody there.
We do pre-registration.
We are going to do pre-registration. We're not sure how we're going to handle the tours yet. There'll be more coming about that. So.
Good, thank you. Go update, Tim.
Give me a second so I put this one up. Enjoy. I'll have to share the screen. All right, thank you very much for giving me a little bit of time. I promise this presentation is not going to be overly long, so we can get to the tour a little bit. But I was asked to provide the committee an a status update of the GROW program where we're at. Currently, we are in the middle of the 7th cycle. So GROW's been we're in the 7th year of this. Going to give a project status update, a reimbursement update, so we can start to see the finances of the GROW program and then talk a little bit about cycle 7. So what we have here is we have the 6 cycles represented. Each project has got its own unique row ID. Red projects, they're the ones that we offered an award, they accepted, but subsequently had to rescind it because of whatever reason. They couldn't afford the project at that time, or they turned it back in to reapply because they felt that they have a better project. Yellow projects are still in design. Green, they're in construction. Blue, they finished construction. They're now in the throes of assessing it, working to complete their final report. And all the white ones, they're done. And they're not, those began their 20-year O&M commitment. As you can see from cycle 1, as you keep going through the cycles, you get more and more projects getting completed. Cycle 5 projects, they're going to start being completed. Next time you see this will probably be 1 or 2 that have gotten a final report. And even the cycle 6 project, I know I'm going to be getting a final report fairly soon from South Fayette. Something that this committee's probably never seen before is, the overall breakout of the different types of projects. Grow, we always talk about 4, but there's really 5 categories. We have green infrastructure, I&I jobs, sewer separation, direct stream inflow removal, and then the SO is system optimization. Those are projects where it's not taking flow out, but it's an improvement to your system that will have an impact on overflows. See green infrastructure 30. The majority of our projects have been I&I projects. We get a lot of them every cycle now. Sewer separation, stream inflows, we don't have too many streams still going into sewer, so we don't get many of those projects. And system optimization, those projects require a little bit of collaboration with us. We don't always get a lot of them.
What's the 4th one?
DSIR,
Yeah.
direct stream inflow removal. Now, the estimated overflow reduction, this chart shows the overall reduction based upon the different types of projects. Now, you may not be able to see it, but green is green infrastructure, brown, orange is I&I, the gray is sewer separation, blue is stream inflow, and yellows are the system optimization. You take a look at this and you start to see sewer separation has the biggest impact possibly on overflow reduction, followed closely by stream inflow removals. But we still get decent removals from the other types of projects. Now, these are estimated. We figure out what the overall is after the monitoring is done. We have a chance to assess the final reports and the data that goes along with it. These numbers come when we do the application review. All these projects ended up, we're estimating 218 million gallons of overflow reduction in a year. The amount of water we're taking out is even higher. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about the money. Okay, I believe I've showed it something like this in past committee meetings, but since 2017, when we had our first request for reimbursement, all the way up to 2022, and I'll be honest, I've lost track as to the number of reimbursements that have gone past my desk. It's close to 200, Mike, 200 sound about right. You can see over time that these reimbursements are starting to really ramp up. It makes sense. We have 6 cycles of awards, and the reimbursements are going to be like a bell curve. They're going to go up, 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 and then as the program fades, they'll go down. But right now, 2022, we're already at over 3 million, and that number is going to be far higher. Got a few requests that are in the process right now. So the financial update. This comes from our finance department. So I know it's right. Benefit cycle, $67.5 million. What that means is that these are the commitments that we have made to the municipalities So what that also means is that there's $32.5 million remaining in the GROW budget. That's for cycle 7, cycle 8, cycle 9, however many cycles we can get from that $32.5 million. The payments, as I showed before, a little over 14 million. That's always going to go up over time. Funds uncommitted on closed projects, those rescinded projects, projects that came in very much under budget. Thank you, Tim. And Dave, where's Dave? Thank you, Dave. So the outstanding commitments of about $47.5 million. That's the amount of money that we still have remaining to give through cycles 1 and 6. Now we're at cycle 7. Cycle 7 begins actually the fall of 2021 when we had the municipal workshops. And we met with a lot of municipalities, and a handful of municipalities gave us projects that were well developed, and we decided they didn't need to go through the letter of interest process. There were 3 this cycle. But for the remaining, can't say, but there's 21 projects that were presented to us. 3 of them were bypasses, 18 letters of interest that came to us. 18 letters of interest came to us. 2 of those letters of interest were actually broken into 2 projects that we asked them to break out just because it would be better for us to analyze those projects separately. These projects came in $32 million in value, and then we broke it out 15 to 5% match. So the range of those LOIs would have been about 5 million to just shy of 28 million. However, what we ended up inviting, break it. There we go. No. There we go. That's what I want. So we invited 17 projects, and for the first time, we've actually everybody submitted who got invited. That for me, that was a little bit of an accomplishment. Sometimes municipalities aren't able to submit every single project. Everybody that got invited submitted their project. The value of those projects, roughly about $16.5 million. Now, again, to break this out between the 15% match and the 85% match, that range would be about $2.5 to $14 million in awards. So somewhere that award amount is going to be somewhere in between there. And just based on the projects, it's probably going to be between 8.5 to, I believe I said, $11 million in awards. It could be less. Odds are it's probably not going to be more. There's a lot of I&I projects here, and I&I projects typically do not get the maximum awards. They're closer to the 15% match. But we do have a couple of very strong sewer separation jobs that are pretty decent budget, and I've got pretty good anticipation that they're going to be on the higher end of the match. And that is it. If there are any questions, Lisa.
Yeah, Tim, do you have a breakdown of either on a map or a chart of how these projects are distributed across the basins and the municipalities? I would really like to see that.
Yeah, if you go to ALCOSAN's website and you go to the GROW page and just scroll down, you'll see we have a web map there.
Okay.
And the web map, it's our GIS based ArcGIS. And you dive in and you can click on every project that we have looked at, and it'll give you options like you can look at pictures of those projects, but at the bottom there's also a summary form.
Okay.
You click on the summary form and it'll tell you a little bit more about that project, some pictures, estimated overflow reduction, and hopefully, you know, as we start to get more and more of these projects finished up, that we can expand.
Yeah, and so there's a follow-up question for that is, as we look at this, are we going to see that the majority of these projects are located in the wealthier communities?
I wouldn't say that the majority of them are located in the wealthier communities. There is sometimes that resource allocation, you know. We try our best to find ways to get municipalities that don't have the resources, the funding to do the projects. Part of this also is collaboration. You know, if we find a project in a municipality that has the potential to really have impactful overflow reduction, we're going to push that project. And, you know, we can't force a municipality to act on it, but what we do have at our disposal is trying to find ways to get that money to municipality. One thing we're doing right now is we're trying to find, we're working with Homestead and USDA to find funds for a project that is a green infrastructure project that's expanding upon existing green infrastructure in Homestead. And we think that, and something that we've tried in the past to get more people involved in, you know, and the offer's always out there. Past few years, it's kind of been set back a little bit, but I think that, you know, once we start working with Homestead, get our feet a little wet on this, that more and more communities that really want to reach out to more communities so that we can get, you know, federal dollars coming in.
At least I can provide an example of that. ALCOSAN jumped in on the Sharpsburg Ravine Street run, and there was no way that Sharpsburg could have afforded that project. So ALCOSAN and PennDOT stepped up to manage the project, and in a big way. I was surprised at the amount of project management that was provided by ALCOSAN to lead the project, and they got ALCOSAN encouraged Shaler and O'Hara to contribute $200,000 each to the project potential, $100,000 up front, and that helped get the project done. And then the actual project management, and then in our case, we stepped up Shaler and gave the inspectors. When you do a PennDOT project, they have to have an office.
Right.
So we gave them a free office in our building, and those were ways that we were able to reduce the cost of the project and then help Sharpsburg get a project done. That O'Hara and Shaler provided some flow to stormwater. And it was, but I was really impressed with how ALCOSAN stepped up on the project management side. I'd say Sharpsburg, a huge amount of money.
Great.
They've also directed me to other sources, Joe, like, you know, USDS, Small Water Fund. They're very, if you reach out, they'll help you find, because the match is tough for us.
Yeah.
Right,
This is
Tim?
cycle 6, right?
Yeah.
We're in
Seven.
7.
Yeah.
We're going through the applications for 7, but we've got, you know, everything you see on this map, and here's the map.
Great.
This is 1 through 6.
Because on that
Okay.
website, it has up to cycle 6 with all the projects and costs.
Right, those are the ones that we've awarded. In cycle 7, we're still reviewing applications.
Because in cycle 6, it's a fairly good cross section. Plus, there's projects that involve
Yeah.
multiple municipalities.
Yeah,
so
you
that
can
was very
see-
good.
I could see, yeah.
You can see on
lot
here
in-
that it's
Oh,
fairly well distributed throughout the service area.
Mhm.
And most of the communities now have participated in the program. We may have 1 or 2 that have not, but you know, nobody forces the municipalities to be involved, but it's a good program, and the collaboration that we get to have with the municipalities really meets the goals of the Clean Water Fund.
Right.
Hi, it's Darla. Can I ask a quick question? First of all, I feel pretty fortunate. I'm sitting here in front of my computer, so I was looking at that map before you put on. It looks really interesting how the distribution is. And now that we're in cycle 7, which honestly, I can't believe it. So congratulations, Tim and ALCOSAN, for all of this work. Have we started going back to inspect the projects for how they're performing in terms of any of them, the green infrastructure, the I&I? Have we started to look at their performance metrics?
Yes, for the green infrastructure, those will be annual checks on the municipalities. So And we just completed that. Marilyn, did I send you yours?
Yeah.
Okay. So
I was
Well-
just saying that.
what we do is, we'll go out, we have a whole checklist of items to see how the green infrastructure is performing. And then, we finalize it and we share that information with the customer municipality. This year, everybody seemed to be doing pretty good, pretty good maintenance. It doesn't appear that any of the green is not working. But we will be doing this every year, as the agreement says, 20 years. And if we see something that needs to be addressed, we will let the municipality know. For other projects, like sewer separation, that requires the municipality to send us a video of that once every 10 years. I&I jobs once every 5 years. Stream inflows will be similar to green infrastructure, where you take a look and just see, is everything working properly?
Have you gotten any post monitoring on an I&I project yet?
Post monitor,
Yeah,
like the 5 year.
yeah.
We haven't gotten there yet because we haven't gotten to a place where we've had a closed out project for 5 years.
Okay.
That's coming. And that's actually coming 2018, 2030, 23.
Okay, we're obviously gonna be interested in what the representation was made on the project and what actually is the deliverable.
Most of the projects now, they're giving us that post construction video.
Mhm.
So the post construction video gives us that baseline, and then we can see what it looks like afterwards. Most of the communities, especially sanitary communities, they've got a cycle that's either 5 or 10 years. They go through the system. And for lining jobs, that's typical to I&I, we just ask, we'd like to see this every 5 years. That way we're guaranteed we have 4 videos over that 20 years, and we can show, if anybody wants to see, hey, these are the projects and this is what they look like over time. And they're not exciting videos. But
But it's important for the communities to understand too, that this is wonderful programs, but this will only last so long. I mean, your one project in the street term watershed, ALCOSAN worked with the communities, 15, 18 years ago and did the same thing. So stores get older, and this isn't like a one-shot deal that people need to know in the future. Because the graciousness of ALCOSAN, we're able to do all these projects, but they can't just walk away and say, we're never going to do it again. I guess that's where Dave comes in and gets more money through Three Rivers and helps everybody else out. But
If I could just update everybody about funding that's available for municipalities. The bipartisan infrastructure law, that money has been, it's now within Pennsylvania's grasp through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. That's mostly loans, although for environmental justice communities, they may be doing grants. That's a big piece of money. And then in this most recent budget, they put in a lot of money from the American Rescue Plan into Growing Greener 3 and H2OPA and small water and sewer projects through the Commonwealth Financing Authority. That new money has not yet appeared. They haven't opened the application system yet, but there will be more money than usual, I believe, for the municipalities and hopefully for ALCOSAN too.
2 things real quick. I was telling Tim I feel old because that first project was my project. I did the same thing he's doing now. And 2, as a service to the applicants, maybe when you close out the project, you sit down and you say, now, this is we finished this project, but where our estimate is this is going to have to be not only looked at so many years, but redone in X. Maybe it's 10 years or 15 years down. So we are advising you, local government, to plan ahead and put that in your long-range plan or your SOAR plan that in I'm going to make this up, 2050, you're going to have to revisit this and start helping them understand and plan ahead, even though no one thinks about that, to get it redone. I think that would be a nice service, just to reiterate to them, life is good today, but
Yeah.
your future boards are gonna need to face
I
this.
do like that idea of
That's a great
having
idea.
a closeout.
Yeah, just give them an estimated year and say future boards will have to address this. Somewhere along the line, they won't have great managers that might be sitting in like in this room, and just put that seed out there, put it somewhere so they know.
Yeah, because the system, it's not a static system. And, as evidence as to the situation that we're in right now. So,
That was great.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, Tim, thank you very much.
thank you, Jim.
Drew as well, brother, Dave?
I'm just gonna start building on that because I'm old and I might forget, but I think, we have the consent orders now that all the municipalities have. And this is going to force them to build a long-term plan. Because the orders require that at each point of connection or at each meter location, if it's a separate community point connection, if it's a combined, that you have to do the reduction of the 10% or the 85, to get into the more details, but I would say, I'd go on a limb and say not one municipality is going to be able to do every one of their POCs
Right.
in this first 5-year cycle of this COA. They're going to have to do it, but what they have to do in the first 5 years of this COAs before them is plan out what they're going to do and put a financial obligation in saying, well, the reason we can't do 10 of our POCs, we can only do 2 is because of the financial reason, but that's going to come in the next cycle. And so where that is really dovetailing in is we are really getting the communities to start realizing the multi-municipal. And the ALCOSAN team works with Three Rivers, and at every meeting we bring in that collaboration where look at what you could do with the transfer of the trunk lines. And that plan is really starting to take off, and Mike and Tim and Julia, the team is really gets an understanding of the municipalities, what it is really benefiting. And you're seeing more and more now saying, okay, we can get that off our plate. And now we can move towards the other parts of the system. And the GROW funding, I think now what they're seeing, and Tim would probably, is now they're using is to really see the compliance part. And they're saying, wow, I can go to this GROW grant funding and it helps me with my compliance. And it really has nothing to do with the economics of the community. It's how much infiltration you can take out or how much separation you do in a combined soil. And as Tim and his team have really pushed multi-municipal projects. And that's got people really working together. We'll see more and more of those come to play. And so we're seeing a lot of progress. We're working right now with 15 multi-municipal projects, just having people in the room. We have a couple more that have asked, and we're in the process of setting up those meetings. And so they are really moving along well. And as to the green infrastructure, one of the focuses that I've looked at is I've always felt from my previous job, as Tim said, I was successful in the community I worked at to get a very nice GROW grant. They made me look really good. There was an article in the paper that we had, but we really brought a collaboration together with PennDOT when somebody else is paving the road that you could do. But on green infrastructure, I've always said people forget the maintenance part. So at the conference this year, we're going to focus on maintaining. Lisa's going to do one of the presentations about how that there is this long term process that you just can't forget about it. And I've asked one of the GROW projects, I'll say it, the one in Crafton. I drive past it a lot. Phenomenal project. I mean, it's just boggles my mind what ALCOSAN was able to help with the community. And so we're gonna have that as a presentation with the community. Hopefully Tim's gonna join them and how it all works. And they, you know, you got to start thinking, they took an abandoned home, they got rid of an abandoned home, they made it a parking lot, and it was all because of smart use of other people's funds. And they used the Grow Grant and they were able to do this. So we're trying to show other communities, this is what you can really do. And especially in the combined source, the ability to get the separation project. And we're really trying to show that is if there's multi-municipal that are combined, the community closest to the open stream is the one that's easiest to divert the water to that from their storm system. So the upper streams, communities can help pay for that project and meet their requirements of the consent order, and everybody wins. So we're really bringing a lot of people together to get that. But I think the long-term plans are really going to start to focus now. And we've also, as I listen and listen to the meetings and the conversation is really good between the engineers. We need to also branch out, and we're working with ALCOSAN on a program on the overall maintenance of the projects, the O&M plans, where we're actually going to bring in not the engineers, the field workers. And ALCOSAN's team does a really good job of doing that. And we've heard some feedback, and anything you hear back is great to bring to ALCOSAN. As I said before, when I've heard some feedback and brought it back to Mike and Tim and Julia, we've come up with different brochures. We've come up with brainstorming on different ideas on how to train. And there's other thing people are saying, well, if I transfer the sewer line, who's going to maintain it? And we're going to be able to show them, you know, being a former municipal manager, I know I didn't have people on 24/7, but ALCOSAN does. And so, you know, that actually will be a better, but we'll could have a program trying to make sure everybody coordinates together and use their expertise to help some of the communities. So we have focused on that, and I think there's a lot of training, and at the conference, we're going to do that. So
when, excuse me, when is the conference?
November 3rd and 4th. That pretty much sums up where we're at this month.
Thanks. Any questions for Dave? Jean?
Mr. Chair, I wanted to let you know that Penn Hills Commissioner Kathy Sapp has sent me a text that she's online, just couldn't be heard, and she had a question about the open house, and she wants to present about it today at a Penn Hills public meeting. She wanted to know if it was weather dependent.
Rain or shine.
I told her rain and shine 9 to 4.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any updates on from municipalities?
Yeah. I have conferred with our engineers, and I find that our trunk line project will be finished at the end of August. We're about 80% right now, and they'll be finished with that and ready to turn it over. So we have to plan an appropriate ceremony accordingly. I don't know what condition Ardmore Boulevard will be in by that time, but we can work around it.
I just wanted to say to dovetail on what Dave was saying. Julia and those guys were just out here, you know, and I was sitting here thinking about the maintenance, how we say people have to make sure they remember to maintain it. One of the things that I didn't think was going to be necessary to the extent that it turned out to be. Yesterday, they were in my office and they could not believe that I had 12 SOAR agreements dating back to like 1929. They took all those and they were, you know, we went through this long thing. They were, first of all, shocked. And a lot of what I thought I was going to have to pay for, I'm not going to have to pay for solely. Wherever I have a joint agreement, if we have work on those lines, like this, a connection I just didn't make. And part of the problem, like with the maintenance, I can tell you that municipalities some of them don't even know they're in agreements. I just went through that with a community that's signed on to 3 agreements, one court ordered. And they, so people change elections, so it's easy to say. And that's primarily why I think that regionalization is the most important thing, because you have ALCOSAN here. It's not going to happen there.
And I think one of the key factors that is, I've seen that before, is if there's a way we can use our mapping system to have those permanently in there. So when manager leaves, the next manager comes, the next elected official, it doesn't get lost in a.
They were
file cabinet.
collected by Three Rivers probably 10, 12
Yeah,
years
we do
ago.
have a part of it, but there's,
Mhm.
everybody forgets to go to
Yeah,
that part of the
yes,
page.
right,
And I
yes.
was always a big proponent, if you're looking at people tend to look more at the physical map.
Right.
Yeah,
And if you're looking at the physical map and you see this little icon and you're like, what is that? Or that could be an agreement, that's a big part. And I think the power of the mapping is what we're
Yeah.
really, I mean, I know Mike is really big on it, has asked me to make some changes. And I was actually talking to Julie today about how we can highlight the transfer of the sewer lines as they happen, because I think as that happens and people start to see that map lighting up,
yeah.
they're gonna say, well, I want to get mine on there.
Mhm.
And I want to get mine on there. So I think we could start using, I was always a big visual person, so, but I think it's starting to sink in and people are starting to find, this is a great, I mean, those of us have been around a long time, though, 20 years ago, finding manholes was like, wow, we didn't really know that. There was a manhole there. There was 20 extra manholes we didn't know about. So I think this agreement part is now, and
Yeah.
and it really is, I don't know if you know, I think you've heard before, is when you go to transfer, ALCOSAN does all the research of the permits at DEP free of charge. They take on that cost. So that's a big help to the municipality.
Any other municipal updates? Hearing none. Max, anything?
I think.
Well, I had a couple questions. I didn't know what the appropriate time was, so I'll wait till after Max's update.
This concludes my update.
Well, my first question is to you. How are we've heard a lot of updates on the transfer agreements themselves. What about with the outside entities that want to take over them? You know what I mean, like Pennsylvania American Water people and all that. Is that still discussed? Is that still going on?
Yes, nothing's been filed at the PUC, no transfer of the sewage systems has been accomplished here in the ALCOSAN system. There's still debates and discussions about how it all works. We haven't seen any other RFPs go out, but we do understand there are communities that are watching and seeing what happens, particularly with Brentwood.
There's
Sawmill Run.
one right now in Brentwood.
Brentwood
That part.
and
Whitehall was looking at it.
Whitehall's also looking at
But I don't
it.
know if they have a
But
proposal.
they, yeah, we have not
The
seen.
reason I know is they called me up to ask where mapping was and manholes and stuff. And I said, you gotta call Heaven. My dad knew where all that was.
There you go.
Is there anything to follow on that point? Yeah. Is there anything in the transfer agreements that prohibits ALCOSAN from transferring to a third party?
ALCOSAN, we'd have to look and see. The transfer agreements themselves have become an issue, with Brentwood. And with the GROW grants, I mean, the lines that are potentially being transferred have at least 2 GROW grants that essentially ALCOSAN paid maybe 85% or so to improve these lines that are then being sold. So one of the demands that ALCOSAN has refund that GROW grant, not Brentwood, but the potential purchaser. But there's another just sort of issue in general that Pennsylvania American has brought up of saying, well, we're going to get approval from the PUC to buy this system. We can't then go ahead and transfer out some of these assets, 2 lines that they're looking at, because we have PUC requirements in terms of our tariff, in terms of our responsibility. So they actually proposed, they were speaking to us at one point of doing similar to a declaration of restrictive covenants, essentially saying we're not going to transfer these to ALCOSAN, but we'll give you a regulatory oversight that if something goes wrong on these lines, you can come in and make us change it. And so that's not regionalization, that's not transfer agreement. And we've come back and had the discussion, as we all talked, that the transfer agreements are there. It is not mandatory. If the municipality wants to transfer, this is the structure that it's done through. Everybody gets the same deal. And this was starting to change things. So we essentially said, no, we're not interested in exploring that concept. So it is still an issue out there for Brentwood, but also for other potential sales. There are other issues that come up in terms of timing, in terms of due diligence, in terms of the agreement that was struck between Pennsylvania America and Brentwood was before they understood the entire system and these types of issues and everything else. So if Whitehall or others are looking at it, they're going to be learning, okay, we need to address this. And if there's something we should transfer out so that we're not refunding grow grants, sign that agreement, get it done, and then look to some other third party.
But in the whole ALCOSAN service area, we really only know about two that are really talking about it, right? No one else is really exploring it.
Well, I only know those two because they happen to be in the watershed. And they both discussed that with me. And
Yeah, okay.
well, I wouldn't be surprised if there were others. It's just that those are the ones we know about.
And for some of the smaller communities, it's really an advantage because they look at the money and they're really struggling. So
Right.
I guess everyone has to have an open mind, but you still have to follow all the rules and the agreements and the laws and stuff.
Short-term advantage, but you're exposing. your-
Right.
Yeah, what you're doing, you could do to your residents' rates. and
Right,
stuff.
For
right.
profit
Yeah.
operation.
And that's, I mean, I know that I've had discussions with the Whitehall Council's financial folks and person. And, you know, they're just looking at, the money coming in. They're not looking at the long-term responsibilities or issues that may arise from it. So I think they haven't really gotten into it that deeply.
And they should, I mean, in terms of the change to the law is only relatively recent, 2016. There have been other sales out east, mostly.
Right.
Keysport is one sort of locally, and the agreements are typically structured with a rate freeze for maybe year 1 and year 2, and after that, it gets part of the entire system. So
Right.
that is the stories you're seeing in the last year out east of that.
Yeah.
I won't say buyers were, perhaps sellers were more.
Right.
So that you've
Right.
seen cases where it's gone up out east in the
Yes.
rates.
Yeah,
So the couple of years will play out, and people will see locally whether they want to do it or not.
right.
My other question is, do we have monthly or quarterly representation to the board from our committee? We submit an annual report. Like, is there anyone, do you attend, Tim, the meetings?
So there was a discussion last month about developing a direct relationship between the board and this committee by having a rotation of board members attend this committee.
Yeah.
And they're still working that through with the board. I just make one presentation to them annually.
Yeah, I was, unfortunately, I couldn't be here because I had COVID, and I heard part of that. So I just wanted to check. So we are working on a process that we would have somebody, and not to burden the chair, we would rotate out board members to do that.
We're still pursuing.
This
that.
advisory committee members to do
So
that.
we're having,
Other way.
Yeah, they're coming
They're
here.
coming here.
Board
It's
is
the other
coming
way. The
here.
board is coming here.
We're not
We're not
going
going
there.
there.
Well, I would just throw out there that the
Your
board.
board meetings are open to the public.
I know, the board is very, very busy, and I just throw out to this committee that, I thought we would go to their meetings as a representative
Yeah.
to make it easier for them, because we're here.
But we
to help.
can. I mean, it's not like we can't go to their meetings.
I know that
right?
we can, I just, it's not a
Yeah.
process set up, I'm just throwing that
It
out.
might
there
not
for
be a bad
communication,
idea.
where we show that we're interested and we want to keep the communication going. So I never expected an ALCOSAN board member to come here. I thought we were going there with an update. I just throw that out for food for process, food for thought, to do that. And then did we settle what the role of the committee is? We've had all these discussions about communication with our municipalities and communication with the board. Was that settled? I mean, because like I said, I couldn't hear a lot last time, and it's not your fault. I just wanted to know where we
No,
stood
that
with
is
that.
not settled. One of the things that was supposed to be on this agenda, and the finance people were unavailable, is we want to go into the next steps going into the finances. We've got to be able to respond to the municipalities, the issues that they're really concerned about, which is rates. We've got to dig down on rates.
yeah, our budget cycle is starting. We have a budget workshop this Saturday. So
Yeah.
In my recollection, I thought we were created under ALCOSAN's order to advise on the clean water plan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was one part of the order.
right.
In the bylaws.
Yes.
In the bylaws, yes,
Yes.
yeah.
And we were advisory to the ALCOSAN board.
Right.
And I was just, my question was how, and Lisa, we've had.
We
many
had this discussion,
conversations.
how do we advise the board?
Right.
It's
because
like
how-
that,
how
that's
is
the
everyone
question, how is
reaching
that,
out to the
how is that
communities?
happening? I
And,
mean, the
um,
first few meetings we had, Corey O'Connor attended. But we haven't really had any relationship with the board since. And so that's always been, something that Ruth Ann and I talked about over coffee many times as to, what are we advising, if we're advising on the clean water plan, like how do we do that? Like, what are the steps to do that? And what does that, does that look like basically?
I guess
It's
the
always
bottom
been
line
my
question is, are we advising the ALCOSAN board personally as ourselves because we're represented here? Are we representing, which I thought was our source sheds, and what each representative is doing to get feedback from their entire source shed? Lisa represents the Sawmill Run watershed, and it's actually entity, and that's why she can give great updates because she has the whole thing. I mean, I represent Chartiers, Mary Ellen, I apologize, your watershed.
Well, Mary Ellen and I
Upper
go
Allegheny.
back to the Northwest Council of Government.
Yeah,
They're never on the board, and we occasionally
Yeah,
discuss.
So you go through the
activities.
COG,
Yeah, we
yeah, we
go.
do.
Because we've got 20 municipalities on the river at one time.
okay?
So we're dealing with multiple watersheds on multiple issues, and we can speak.
So
to
there's
those.
a COG, Lisa's an entity. How do you get the whole source sheds?
We
opinion?
share an engineer, so I kind of use Glenn Engineering as the,
So he represents all the communities in the whole source shed.
yeah, the ones that we're dealing with. Ours are all pretty much by Glenn Engineering, so.
and Mark technically is part of Sawmill Run because that's Shannon.
Yeah, Turtle Creek Cog should be more involved, but I haven't been successful in getting them engaged. So,
Okay, I'm just curious how each representative does it. ALCOSAN prepared marketing, so it's really up to us as an individual. I know that, I think we lost Ken. Oh, no, there's Ken. Ken and Mark and I were developing a different type of system to reach out to our communities. And I was just curious how that was playing out, because if we're representing to the ALCOSAN board our source shed opinion, it's not just our personal opinion while we're sitting here, then we need to be talking to the municipalities on a regular basis, trying to get any feedback from them.
yeah,
And
we
that's
did
okay to
one-
do.
We did
right?
one workshop, we had all of the communities, come together. We had the big maps on the wall.
How many communities do you have in your source
There
shed?
are 7.
Yeah, we
And
have like multiply that by
because
three.
there was such a disparity in the amount that was paid by each community, depending on how much of the system they have in the regionalization component. And we have the big piece, so I hosted the meeting largely because my council members wanted to understand why our rate was so much higher than everybody else's. And this was a couple of years back now, I think. We had,
I remember you talking.
yeah, we had the map out on the
Yeah.
table, and I had all the streets. Everybody was yelling at me, but I finally convinced, the person on my council who was the most agitated that it was actually fair. And that, you can, and the map is still on the wall in my council chamber because they tend to bring it up and I need to point.
How many miles of sewer you have?
Right, how many, well, the fact that we're in the valley.
Right,
So
right.
we have the big line in the bottom.
And what we're hearing was growing greener. Then
Yeah.
trunk transfer. That was everybody's interest. Now all I'm hearing is about rates. In my case, I'm stroking a check out of Shaler was $450 a month, $450,000 a month. It's now $650,000
Wow.
in just 3 short years.
Well, in mine, a lot is about the rates, but we've gotten such great updates from the staff on all the construction projects that's my go-to. Let's go over the construction project. It's on the website. You see what's going on. This all costs money. The only way it works in ALCOSAN is a fabulous plant. They don't have fines. They're doing great. You want to flush your toilet? Let's look at what it costs. And that's kind of the rate answer that I give. And actually get into some of the specifics because there's stuff on your website. So I just wanted to check in. Everyone's reaching out to their basin. They're getting feedback from all their municipalities and they're trying to, and you do it in different ways. You go to the COG meetings. Lisa has her watershed and ours is a little different system. And we still need one more person on our Chartiers, which I know they're working on, because we have, don't quote me, we have a lot more than 7. We have 20 some, I think. We have one of the largest You have a pretty big one too. so.
Nobody wants to participate because you meet at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I have been failing miserably unless I can get people that don't work
Yeah.
or our municipal managers, and we are trying to get more folks involved. Additionally, I'd like to reiterate what Lisa said, which is having sat through a year and a half or so with Tim and several other folks at the table, developing the advisory group, we looked at just the wet weather plan, right? And so part of the question is what does ALCOSAN need from us too, right? I mean, you know, what does the board need to understand? We don't represent ALCOSAN. We only represent basins. And so I think it's trying to understand and figure out where that line goes and what does Arletta need or what does the staff need? I worry sometimes. I've heard from some communities that it's better for them to hear directly from ALCOSAN. They can ask questions about it. And when we did all this work, and we did it for a long time, and I don't remember, besides Tim, I know Mary Ellen and all the cogs were on there. It was about having additional representation. Yeah. And then we narrowed it down to just the wet weather plan, clean water plan. I don't remember exactly. So it's us still trying to figure that out. I mean, think about it. The first year we had one meeting, and then we hit COVID for 2 years.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we modeled this on the Air Advisory Committee that the county has. That's what we modeled it on. We modeled it on that. Usually what happens is staff or the board brings something to the advisory committee to talk about and discuss. That advisory committee is made up of experts, and so are you all in this conversation. We just happen to split it by basins, but you all are experts, subject matter experts and other experts inside of the discussion that you can help figure out, you know, what it is. So I appreciate, I mean, every time we talk about this, I go back and I think about it, and I reread all the IOP stuff that we did, and hope that you all can stick with it and perhaps begin considering another time during the day, maybe evening, maybe quarterly meetings that make it easier for people to want to participate in this discussion and allow it to be broader than just us. So that's like literally my 10 cents on this issue, Ruth Ann and Lisa, because I appreciate and respect that you bring it up pretty regularly.
This morning, so there was this discussion, this sidebar discussion.
I completely agree with you. That's why I think that one of us should start to attend the ALCOSAN board meetings to tell them we are here, we're here to help. Do you need anything from us? Sometimes when you're in front of people, they think of things or whatever, just to make sure we're fulfilling our jobs. But
we could attend. You can show up and have public. I mean, if you've ever been to an ALCOSAN meeting, like many of us have, I used to love to go. And then, you know, it's you know, with the greatest respect to Arletta and her team, right? We get the agenda for the board meeting. We can show up for public comment.
I would just think as we're trying to help the board, I thought I'd be at least a line item on the agenda versus public comment and have to show up, but I'm done. If they're working on the process, I just would hope that we have communication one way or the other to make sure this keeps going. And I've gotten my answer how people do their feedback. So I'll be working with Ken offline, and we'll see what we can do.
Let's just a brief comment. One thing we have to be careful of, and we've all been getting calls, some of us been getting calls from a media outlet. We don't speak for us. We have to remember we don't speak for us. And we don't want to even try to do that. That's like the third round. We're handing opposite ends. I think we need to send the message to the board that we're here to advise you. Tell us what you need advice from. But in all reality, they're not going to respond to that. I mean, let's go back years ago when there was a first advisory committee where we met one time and we were asked to leave and never come back. That's literally what happened. and I was working in Colorado administration. So the federal government jumped in. ALCOSAN has been much more receptive to work with us because they have to and because they want to. I think they've proven it. So we have to send a message through our letter that we're here, talk to us. And I'm more than willing to meet with them and speak with them. I have met with them on occasions, briefly aside, and they're trying to determine, they don't know how to deal with us either, to be quite frank. They're kind of looking at us like we could be a problem. But I think we need to pursue what we need to look at. So we've pursued, I mean, the trunk transfer idea came from my engineer meeting 15 years ago, and at least. And when we first presented that, I remember a member of the ALCOSAN staff looking at me and saying, "There's no effing way that's going to happen." Well, it's happening. So there's many ways that we have reached out to ALCOSAN to make this work. At the same time, we've got to pursue what's in our municipal interest. When Emmy and I go back to our board, half of them gloss over and just, why are we talking about ALCOSAN? And then the ones that are interested have been very prescriptive about, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about this. And now all I hear about is rates. All I'm hearing about. So I think we got to do a deep dive on rates. I think we need to step into the next quarter of this board, or the last quarter of this year, and do a deep dive and find out what the hell's going on with rates. Why are we projecting 5 years forward 7% increases? And I'm sure there's a valid reason, but we need to get that valid reason. You can drive in the lot and see the valid reason, I guess.
I was about to do this.
Yeah.
Open the drapes.
Yeah.
There we go.
When
There we go.
Mary Ellen and I, when Mary Ellen and I pulled into the lot, I said, "Christ, look at that hole over there." So that's the case, but we need to articulate that back to our municipalities. And I don't think we're there yet. I can't articulate it.
Well, I think that it's the best way to articulate it is if they don't put this investment in, everybody's poop's gonna come up through your basement.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that, it's like, there's not gonna be the capacity to meet the needs of the communities,
I found that once people understand and hear about all these projects, then they get it, but nobody likes to read things or go on websites or do
they
letters or
don't,
emails.
no.
So it's a matter of, okay, here we go, here's my list, talking to them verbally. Oh, I didn't realize that. Oh, I didn't realize that. Well, why don't you go down the ALCOSAN open house and get a wonderful tour? I mean, I used to bus people down here and tell them, first they're like, "We're going to ALCOSAN." I'm like, "Yes, we're going to ALCOSAN because I'm tired of hearing it in a meeting."
But I think this committee's got to prove that. We've got to prove.
Well, that's what happens. That's why I'm asking the question of how you all are communicating it to your watersheds to prove that kind of stuff. And I hear different
But we're
things.
not, and we're just not there yet. I mean, we've been at this, and I hate to blame it on COVID. The other thing that has frustrated me as chairs, we struggle to get it warm, right? That's not a good thing. If we're here to do a job, we're struggling to get a forum sometimes. And that's sort of an embarrassment.
Well, I think that it might behoove us to, like Ruth Ann's talking about, a bus tour and things like that, is incorporating, figuring out what those techniques are to engage folks. What's going to grab their attention and get them to understand why this is happening, what's happening. And so, us sitting around here and talking about it, that's not an attention grabber. Us sending them, you can give them as much literature as you want. And like you said, they're not going to read it, but what are the techniques that really pull them in? Arranging to have tours, arranging to have bringing in people from the municipalities, or even just the regular public. They're not always going to come to an open house, but you might be able to grab them for like the folks in your cog and open it up to some of the residents.
I think you have a good point there. Well, we've done lunch at Seven Springs, and that was a borderline out of control. I mean, just it's like herding cats. You know,
Yes.
you're sitting at the table saying, could you pay attention to the presentation?
Oh, yes.
And so maybe you're right, maybe we gotta drag them down there on a bus and say.
You gotta bring them, and it can't be a huge forum. It has to be smaller. It has to be that more
No
intimate.
watershed.
Yeah, by watershed, yeah.
I tell you what I found, I gave a presentation last night about our connection to the oceans. And I pulled up the ALCOSAN, where's my flush thing?
Follow the flush.
Yeah, follow the flush.
And I put mine up there because I could do my own. And then I said to people, you have a phone, go to alcosan.com. And here's the thing, look up where your water goes. And everybody was on their phone doing it,
People love that.
because they
Yeah.
did. It was very graphic. It was very immediate. It was very personal. And they had no idea before that, and trying to just get people to understand that these issues have infrastructure attached to them that
Right.
requires updating, and a lot of it has not been updated for years and years and years. And the way things are moving, if you want to have growth and development, or even ongoing health and safety in your communities, you have to pay attention to this, and it costs money. And if we share it, it's better than if you were trying to do it alone. So like, okay, we're gonna sell it, but then you're on your own.
But then you're on your own,
You know,
right?
you
Okay,
really
so
have no
to move
idea.
this so we can get on the tour,
Yeah.
let's do this. Let's have on the next agenda, 2 items. One item is board relations and public outreach. And the second one is beginning to get into the finances.
Yeah.
We're really gonna move on.
Mhm.
Is there, any, Max had nothing. I would say that our next meeting is September 20th at 2022 at 2 p.m. A couple things want to make, good luck to Janie on your surgery.
Yes.
Coming up.
We're taking December off, August and December, we're taking those off. And would you consider, and another thought for the next agenda, give us some thought, you want to move to a bi-monthly meeting?
Yeah.
Schlepping the entire staff in here and look at each other saying, I gotta get the hell out of here. I got work to do."
Fine.
So I'm thinking maybe we should move to a bi-monthly meeting if that's okay with you. No decision today, we'll just give that some thought.
Let's note for them, I will be missing the September 20th meeting, because I'll be out of town giving a speech.
Okay.
I will see.
Very good. Okay, if there's no objection, we're gonna adjourn and then move to, any public comment? No public comment, then we're gonna adjourn and we'll move to the plant tour for those of you who are. Thank you for your attendance.